Hello, my beautiful souls. Welcome to this episode of Successful Witches, where we are obsessed with indie romance life, spice, smut, happily ever afters. And I have an absolute delight of a guest to bring you today on the show, the wonderful Naomi, who is otherwise known as French and Bookish on Bookstagram, that many of you will know. And Naomi has been kind enough to come and hang out and chat to us today about all things on the kind of back end of indie romance author life, because this is Naomi's world. This is her entire kind of area of expertise, and she has so much to give and to share and so much fucking knowledge about this because of her incredible behind the scenes support she does for two powerhouses who we are going to, of course, talk about during this episode. we can't not talk about two queens of paranormal romance themselves, and not only that, but also Naomi does design work and all sorts of incredible author support that is beyond just what the process of writing a book looks like. You know, indie romance is so much about, obviously, authors putting their artistry out into the world, but there is this whole spectrum of things that goes on behind the scenes. And that's why I have been so fucking excited to get on this chat today and bring you our wonderful Naomi. Welcome on in. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Oh, and I have to say, for anyone who is listening on audio or, you know, tuning in on YouTube, Naomi has been very, very kind to work with our very strange assortment of time zones that you and I are both in.
Yes.
I'm based in New Zealand. So I'm coming from the future in the morning, and Naomi is yesterday, but in the evening. Exactly. So we've been laughing before we jumped on to press record for this episode about just the strange world of also the work that you do, that it require your work day effectively starts in the middle of your afternoon.
It was weird at the beginning when I started, doing this job, because it's a whole process. You have to get used to it. But now it's just part of my life. Like I don't even, realize that, like, I don't even look at the time. Like it's almost 10 p.m. and I'm like, it's the middle of my day.
Yeah. And I was having a quiet meltdown once I realized how late in the evening it was going to be.
Oh, no,
and then we both kind of laughed and realized that, yeah, this is kind of a normal work day almost for you.
Absolutely. I call Presley a lot, and we always, obviously, I have to call her when she's awake. So I usually call her and it's like 9-10 p.m. at night, and it's like a whole, like work call, super important, and it's like I'm ready to go to bed. But
yeah. Yeah. I'm in my robe, I'm in my pajamas.
I'm in bed. I'm in bed.
And that's kind of the almost like the incredible thing about your work and what you do, and the fact that it literally is divided by an ocean for, in your case. Would you care to share with us a little bit, for those of you who don't know you and don't know your world, your incredible, magical, dare I say, at times chaotic world, I imagine, of all the things happening all at once. Naomi is nodding for those of you listening on audio. Would you like to just give us a little bit of an insight into your journey of how you got into doing the work you do, supporting authors, your design work? Like, we are so here for all the tea.
Okay, so it's kind of a long story, so I hope you don't mind.
We have got all the time.
Okay, so I actually started like reading romance in 2013. So when I was 18 years old, I discovered romance, and I discovered paranormal romances, like, and Gina Showalter was one of my first author I read, and I read her Lords of the Underworld series, and I fell in love like completely. I was obsessed, like not a little bit obsessed, like completely obsessed. I at the time during that period, book blogs were a big thing, right? Where you would write reviews and all of that stuff. And so I decided to do a book blog, and I was looking for a name for it. And I thought, oh, my favorite series is The Lords of the Underworld. And each book in that series starts with the darkest something. And I thought, oh, the darkest reader. Oh, that sounds good. I mean, I think it's cute. Still now, I think it's cute. So I created that blog. I, did all my reviews and stuff, and I would tag Gina constantly on Twitter, and like I was the annoying reader that would, like, just every day she would get notification like, oh, Naomi tagged you on this, and like she had no choice but to know who I was by the end of it. Like she just didn't have any like a choice at all.
I love it.
So, we actually just kind of became internet friends because I was so obsessed with, like, I genuinely loved her book so much, and I still do. I still love her and her books so much, but that I would, like, review all of her books and tag her, and like every time she would tweet something, because Twitter at the time was very more active than it is today. Every time she would tweet something, I would reply, even if I had nothing interesting to say. I would like it was bad. It was bad. Anyway,
Ultimate hype squad.
exactly. That was me. Like I was obsessed with her. Anyway, so I had that blog, and I then started I had Photoshop, and I had never done any classes or anything, but I kept seeing, these teasers and graphics on other social media. And I thought, oh, I'd like to do that too. Like I want to try. And so I looked at a lot of tutorials and all of that stuff. And so I started making graphics and teasers for fun. They were bad. They were bad, but it is.
We all start somewhere, right? Like we all have to start somewhere.
But I was, so without Gina asking and without Gina probably wanting it, I would make teasers for her. It was bad. So I would send her like, I would like tweet teasers to her like, oh, here's one for you. It's like, probably she didn't want to use it because it looked bad. But Gina, if you know Gina at all, she is like the nicest, sweetest person on the planet. And so she was always super nice about it. I'm like, oh, thank you, Naomi, whatever. Anyway, and so, throughout the years, we became kind of friends because, well, she didn't have a choice, the poor soul. I just really just made her my friend. And so and so I at the time I was working, I was a nurse. And I did not like my job. I was not happy. It did not make me happy. I would come home and I would cry because my day had been shit. I mean, it was pretty bad. So in 2019, I tweeted, and I still have that tweet, so it makes me emotional when I see it. I tweeted about how I would like to help authors. Like I would love to be a social media manager for authors because I could see that a lot of authors weren't super active and blah, blah, blah. And I thought, oh, I could be good at that because I love social media. I know how to make graphics. Now at that time, years later, I was a little bit better at making, teasers and such. So, and Gina saw that tweet. She saw it and she emailed me and she was like, okay, I saw that tweet. And if you're interested, you can try and manage my Facebook page for like a week and we can see how it goes. And it was at the time that Gina had released a book in her Lords of the Underworld series that had caused a lot of I would say backlash with our readers, because I mean, if you haven't followed the series, she had these two characters that from the start readers thought they were going to be together, and that was the goal. But then after like 10 plus years of writing the series, she changed her mind, like things happen when you write a long series. Anyway, so they did not end up together, and so that book she had a lot of backlash on that book, and it was bad. Like she had death threats and all of that. It was, especially her, genuinely the best person ever. Anyway, so she was
coming from like a series where, like anyone who knows her work knows that like she's she's got that kind of, I want to say like impishly evil streak, right? For like killing off characters and things,
Yeah.
right? Like this is not some fluffy like, you know,
Yeah.
rom-com series. Like
Yeah.
this is
But
like
and the thing,
dark.
exactly. And so it's so yeah, she was getting a lot of backlash, and so she kind of stepped back, she kind of took a step back
Hmm.
from social media. And so it was at that time. And so she was like, okay, so you can, do my Facebook for a week and we'll see how it goes. And I did, and it went well. I mean, I didn't really know what I was doing because I had never done this job before. It was
Hmm.
really scary because, it's it's like it's a big responsibility when an author tells you, okay, here's my social media,
Yeah.
do your thing. And it's like, okay, I don't think at that time I realized how much of a big deal it was, because like it's kind of a big deal.
Hmm.
Um, so anyway, we started with our Facebook page, and then we created our Facebook group. And then later on, like maybe a few months later, she gave me her Instagram. And then again, a few months later, she gave me a Twitter. And it kind of happened, like organically. It didn't like, she didn't give me access to all of her social media and all of that right away. Kind of happened, like throughout the month. And then it was her website, and then her newsletter. And then I kind of took over her life, and, just it worked for the both of us.
Yeah.
And so that's it, kind of happened naturally. And so that's how I ended up working for Gina Showalter full time. Um, and then Cressley, I started working for Cressley in 2020, like 2021, I think. Yeah, 2021, before Monroe released. So Cressley and Gina are really close friends.
Yeah, for anyone who doesn't know, they are incredible, like not only collaborators, like creatively, right? But they genuinely are
Yeah,
like
they
besties behind the scenes as well.
exactly. They've known
Yeah,
each other for a very long time.
yeah.
And so Cressley, took a break, and she was gone for a few years. And Gina, not I didn't know that, but Gina told her about me, and she was like, okay, if you want to come back, because Cressley as was never big on social media even before she took her break, but even less when she came back, because her social media was a mess. I mean, it was not
Yeah.
because of her, but
Oh,
like
I can
it was bad.
imagine. Yeah, yeah.
Uh, so she was like, Naomi, like she works for me and blah blah blah. Apparently she said good things about me. And so
Of course.
Presley sent me an email. Again, I still have that screenshot because I freaked out because I love Presley. Like I'm a huge Presley Gold fan.
Yeah.
And it was different than when I started working for Gina, because when I started working for Gina, at that time I already knew her well, right? We already
Mhm.
like were kind of friends. But Presley, like I didn't, I mean,
Yeah.
I knew her as an author, but I did not know her like as a person. And so
Mhm.
when I received that email, I was like, holy shit,
Did
like
you like
wow.
throw your phone across the room? I feel like if I
I
had that sort of
I
situation.
I took a screenshot and I immediately called my best friend, who also is a reader. And I was like, you won't believe the email I just got. Like, holy shit. Um, it's such a great moment, it's like, wow, Presley
Yeah.
Cole. Because especially because when you love an author, and they seem so, when you love an author and you don't know them personally, they seem so untouchable. Like, you don't think you will ever be able to talk to them or like connect with them.
Mm.
So the fact that Kirsty Cole, who had up until this point kind of disappeared, emailed me, I was like, wow, that's a big deal. So I immediately emailed her back, like, yes, I'm here, I can help you. And Presley asked to call me, which was even worse. I was like, holy shit.
It's like any chill just left the building.
Especially because I hate, I hate being on the phone. Like it gives me so
Yeah.
much anxiety. Uh, and with Gina, we don't call each other at all. We just text each other. And so Presley was like, yeah, it's easier on the phone. I was like, oh, are you sure? I feel like it would be easier by email, but okay. Um, so she called me and we talked for like maybe 30 minutes, and
Yeah.
about what she would like me to do and what I could do for her. And so yeah, we just started same thing. We started with our Facebook page and our Facebook group, and then kind of from there it kind of grew from there. And here I am today.
It's such a fucking cool story. And like that was essentially how I first met you, or first started stalking you, I don't know which, was through the opening of Chrisley Cole's Facebook group. And I think I maybe joined it, I don't know, it was certainly, I think, within the first month that it opened. It was like quite brand new. And yeah, it was just like this sudden like influx of people all coming in, being
It was
so
crazy.
so overjoyed that there was a space to finally be able to come and connect about these books and these characters and this world. Because by that stage there was like all 19 books out, right? Like in the Immortals After Dark.
Monroe was not out yet, but yeah, all the
Yeah.
others were.
Yeah. So, you know, this was like an extensive back catalogue of Immortals After Dark, plus the other books, plus, you know, the other series. Like, and so you had this enormous community of people who just kind of been like hanging out, waiting to be able to finally come and just scream about these books together. And I can imagine that that must have been quite a, like you say, like coming into Gina's world must have been, you know, taking that step of going, okay, I'm suddenly responsible for this community. But
Yeah.
to basically be the person opening the door to like a convention all of a sudden.
That was scary, and it was very overwhelming at first because, like I said, Cressley had taken a break, so
Yeah.
it had been years since readers had heard from her, and so readers were like wild, like they were, and that's not a bad thing. I'm not, saying that
Yeah.
in a negative way, but they were very excited, and so
Mm.
it was pretty crazy. Just we got like maybe 10,000 members in like a week, and um and it was pretty scary because Gina and Cressley have, although they can be very similar, they have a different way of like I don't like behave. I don't know how to say that, but I don't work the same way with Gina that I do with Cressley, because although they are very similar in some ways, they are still very different. And so Cressley is very private. There are things that I know I can't say. There are things that are, so it was and it was it was very delicate, and it was pretty scary and very overwhelming. Like I would get like hundreds of notifications every day just from Cressley's group,
That
and
group alone.
it was wild. And still to this day, this group is
Yeah.
still super active. And I love
Yeah.
it. I mean, I really do. I love my job. I love what I do, but it's yeah, like I said, it's a big, I don't think people realize how much of a responsibility it is. I get people telling me like, "Oh, you're always so patient and nice." And I'm like, "Want me to be a bitch? Like I can't be, this is my
Yeah.
job. Like I take it seriously." And I'm very I would never want people to like think badly of me because it would reflect badly on one of my authors.
Mm.
So I take it very seriously, because I would never, I won't, name names, but I've seen some PAs or whatever behave really badly
Mm.
toward readers. And that like stuck with me. And I'm like, I would never want to be that person who, like, even if I know the author isn't responsible, they still work for them. And so I'm very careful about what I say and how I say it. And yeah, it's kind of a big responsibility.
Oh yeah. And I really, you know, I have seen, you know, just in my time being part of that community as a reader and as someone who enjoys the fuck out of Immortals After Dark, you know, like and and is obsessed with Cressley as well, you know, like it takes a skill to be able to like facilitate a conversation where people have invariably got differing opinions on characters, on things that happen in the books, have got their own theories about what's happening in books or what has happened in the books, you know. So it's like facilitating a space where that can all happen, where people aren't kind of railroaded by other people who come in hot with their sort of take or their opinion or whatever. And so, as you say, like there is a vast amount of work that goes on to make sure that those spaces stay safe for every reader, not just the readers who are the most vocal or most active, or, you know,
Stuff. It is, because like you said, they all have different opinions. And the thing is, with my groups, be Gina or Kresley, I have a very strict rules of like, you be nice and you be respectful. And stay, you know, I understand that everyone is not going to like all the books, and that's okay. But I don't think the group where the author is and where it's their space is the place for you to, you know, go and tell them how much you hated the book and how much, you know, it's like, hey, you have the entire internet to say this, and you can leave a review, you can do your thing. But in that group, just, you know, be positive and be kind and be nice. And I also think there is a way to say things. Like you can say, oh, I didn't like that book, in a respectful way, and in a way that, you know, won't necessarily, where the comments won't be necessarily like awful and terrible. And so it's a whole thing, because sometimes I don't have any negative post or anything for days, and then in the same day I'll get like 3 posts bashing a book or something, and I'm like, ugh. And now I have to tell them that I'm not accepting their post, and it's always like, I know they're going to be angry with me, and I'm like, ugh, I have to deal with this now.
Like astrology, what the fuck? Like, why is today the day?
Exactly. It's always that. It always happens. It's like there's nothing for days, and then all of a sudden everything on the same day. I'm like, I can't do
and again, like, you know, Kresley's books, like just to touch on Immortals After Dark here, like, again, these are books that are dealing with very dark, you know, kind of themes and characters, and I mean, there is so much fucking humor and, you know, joy in the books as well, which is what makes them like this perfect, like, you know, just bingeable like thing that people can't get enough of. But, you know, they're also books that were written in a time, probably, would you say, before sort of nowadays, if authors were putting out a similar book, they would include trigger warnings or content warnings, or, you know, things, because that's kind of the way indie romance has evolved, to have these sort of places you can go, or it's spelled out in the book before you even open the first page. Whereas I think back then it wasn't really a thing, was it?
No, it was not. No. It wasn't. The thing is, Kresley is now self-published, but, you know, most of the Immortals After Dark book are not self-published. The only ones that are so far are Shadows, Seduction, and Monroe. So all the others were with her old publisher. And I don't even think nowadays publishers do trigger warnings. I mean, but yeah, and I also think when, you know, you read those books, especially the earlier one, you have to remember that they were written like in the early 2000s. And I think it's a big difference, because even Kresley told me, like, she told me now there are things that she wouldn't necessarily write the same way, just because, you know, like, I don't know, things have changed, and you have to be more careful, which is completely fine and normal, you know, more sensitive to some things. And yeah, so even though I love those books and I adore those books and I wouldn't change anything about them, I think, you know, 20 years later, you know, it wouldn't.
It's every author in every book, right? Like, I think even like something like Agatha Christie's novels, like, right, like they've gone back through and kind of done edits to take out things that nowadays are not kind of socially the way we
that I don't necessarily agree with, because I feel like that's how it was written, and you have to take it as something that was written in that time. And so, you know,
so whatever. it's a whole kind of thing, right? And I think as an author myself, like, I even know something I've written a year ago, I look at and go, well, probably if I had to rewrite that book today, I would write things differently. Or, you know, it's just the nature of being an author. Like, you're always, you know, if not striving to improve as a writer, you're always evolving as a writer as well. So there's always going to be something you look, and I can only imagine Kresley looking at her back catalogue, and Gina as well, like looking at their back catalogues and going, wow, like, you know, this there is so much here, but also there are so many ways and different things, and things could have gone differently, or would, if I was doing it again, could go differently. But that's kind of part of the fun of it in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also think, it's paranormal. I feel like also with paranormal, you can do a lot more things that you wouldn't do in, contemporary, and you can uh go crazy with certain things. I will say though, Cressley rereads our books a lot because she loves them. She's very open about loving our books, which I really love because I think it's awesome. But when she writes a book in the series, for example, for Emeralds After Dark, she will reread the entire series first, like literally every single book. And then she will reread it a second time. Like she's a perfectionist.
Yeah.
So she loves rereading our books. So, she does love rereading her earlier work. But yeah, I think when there is a new reader, I see it a lot, in the comments or on Twitter. She gets tagged on some things, and I see it a lot of people being kind of shocked by some of the things in the earlier shock me, but I guess,
Yeah.
But it's like, yeah, I think a lot of new readers, and I say new readers, I would say readers who discovered romance because of TikTok, which, because of the pandemic, it was a lot of new romance readers, which I think is awesome. But, I think I I love it, and I also don't love it because they have this certain expectation about romance and about this and that, and it's like, just leave us be, like,
Yeah.
let us don't judge us.
Yeah, like the books,
we like weird things.
yeah, the books that you are representing that were around decades before social media was even a thing, right? Like, that's also the thing, right? Is that places like Booktok are heavily influenced by books that have been written since Booktok existed, right? Like, and dare I say, written for kind of almost like the purpose of Booktok in a way. Like, there are a lot of books being written that are, still really great books, but are very much being written with that in mind, of like the hooks and the lines and the tags and the things that are going to potentially go viral or whatever the case may be. So it's like a whole different era of writing in itself. And I have to say, like, with the way that you facilitate that community in that space, it was a really big inspiration for how, as I was setting up my own kind of around about the same time, that I was able to go away and, one of my best friends, she's my PA, and we were kind of basically going like, what is Naomi doing with this? Like, how would Naomi handle this? Like, how would she set this up? And so
that makes me happy.
I have to say that you have been a big influence in the way that we have kind of set about doing things right from the start, because while my community is in its kind of infancy, like I am in the very early days of my own writing career, I also want to make sure that what we're doing now is with that future vision in mind, right? Like you might as well start doing things for 50 people the way you would do it for 50,000 people.
Absolutely.
Right? Because
absolutely.
yeah. So I just had to say thank you for that as well.
Well, thank you. That means a lot, really. It does. Thank you. I think social media though is very important, and I always say it, like, if you're an author, you don't have to have all of the social media. Like, I personally, for my author, they have TikTok, but I have created accounts for them, but I'm not active at all in them because it's my thing and it's not something that I necessarily like doing. I do them from time to time, but anyway. So I don't think you should have like all the social media available on the face of the planet, but I think you should have at least one, platform where you are very active and where you share news and you connect with your readers. I think it's so important. And that's what I was telling, because that's the part where Cressley and Gina are different, is because while I do all of Gina's social media and the posts that you see are 99% of the time made by me, she is still somewhat active, right? She goes on her group and she replies to comments, and she sometimes makes posts on her group, and she's, she goes on social media every day. Cressley, however, is very different. She does not go on social media at all, like at all. She stopped going. She barely checks her phone. That's why we have monthly phone call, because it's it's a whole thing. I adore her. She's amazing. But to get a hold of her, you have to be patient. You have to be patient. She's
you
very
have
much
to have some powers from Immortals After Dark to
yeah.
like go and find this woman.
The whole thing. She's very much like and Gina had warned me. She was like, don't be scared if she doesn't reply to your emails right away, because she sometimes won't reply to me for like days. And I saw that because I will sometimes, even now that we've been working together for a while and we know each other well, I'll text her something and she'll reply 2 days later. And so I'm a stalker with Presley. Like if you look at my phone, it's blue bubbles everywhere. And then like, because I have to I constantly have to text her and be like, okay, what do you think? And she doesn't reply, so I'm just texting her again. I'm like, I don't care. She'll have like 10 messages to check from me. So yeah, so she's very different than Gina, where Gina, I'll text her something and within the hour she'll have replied to me.
Yeah.
But with Presley, you have to be patient. And so what we do is like we have monthly phone calls where we, talk on the phone for like an hour, 2 hours, and we go over everything. And then sometimes when now, so we had a phone call about like 3 weeks ago, and there are so many things that we need to plan and do. And so I have text, like I don't know if I can show you, because like it's funny. I mean, it's funny. It's not funny, but like, okay.
All the blue.
See, like all the blue, that's me. She just does not reply. And then when she replies, she will reply to one text. All the others are forgotten. So I was like, okay. Honestly, I was like, I need to call you.
Yeah. We've got our like minutes and our agenda here that we've got to go through.
It's not because she doesn't care or doesn't want to do it. It's just not her thing at all. Like she's very focused on writing and on her family, and I love that for her. I really do. And that's also why I'm here. I'm here to help her do all of our social media so she doesn't have to do it. But I also need to, know certain things. And so to know certain things, I need to talk to her. And so that's why I was saying that they're very different, because with Gina, it's very easy. Like I just text her and she'll reply right away. With Presley, I text her and she'll reply 3 days later.
And so, I think that that's a really beautiful example for anyone who might ever watch this or listen to this episode, who is looking to support authors or is an author themselves looking for support. Like, I think that is something that it's really good to bear in mind about yourself, is like, how do you work best? How do you communicate best? How do you want to show up on social media as well? Because I loved what you pointed out just before about the fact that you don't have to be on all these platforms, because I know people who they fucking love social media. Like they are on it, they are live and breathe it. It is so native to them. And then there's other people who are like, tell me now, like this is the worst fucking thing I have to do. I just want to go and write my books, or I just want to go and be creative, and I don't want this kind of overwhelm of things. And I probably fall somewhere in, I'm probably more on the Cressley end of the scale, that like if I could, I would happily delegate. But I also do really enjoy a lot of the community building and things like that. So I'm a little bit the same, that I'll sometimes disappear for a few days and not reply to anything.
Yeah.
And then I'll come back and sort of be in like catch up mode.
You have to do what works for you. And I really believe in not forcing. Like I see a lot of authors who when Booktok, it's still a big deal, but when it really took off, a lot of authors started creating TikTok account and were trying to make videos, and you could tell that it was forced, right? You could tell that they weren't like comfortable. And I hate that for them, because I think that if TikTok does not work for you, then that's okay. Like you'll find your niche, you'll find what works for you, and the readers that will like what you do. Because I, as much as again as I love Booktok, and I think it did a lot of great things for the romance genre, and a lot of authors took off because of Booktok, which I think is amazing. It's also, I think, very like it's always the same books that always come, you know, it's very like
Yeah.
centered, the same kind of books and the same kind of thing. So I don't think, you know, I don't think if you're a new author, just, you know, create an Instagram account, you know, because
Yeah.
Instagram, you can just take a photo, and just don't force yourself to like be everywhere, do all the things. Start with
Yeah.
Instagram, and then maybe you want to do, you know, TikTok, then do a TikTok, but do it because it makes you like, because you want to do it. Don't do it because you have to, like, you feel like you
Yeah.
have to do it.
Yeah. And I think, you know, we could probably, like, this could be a whole episode in itself, but I think for any newer authors out there as well, like understanding that a lot of that sameness with the same books that are coming up all the time on places like Booktok, like it's pay to play behind the scenes, right? Like authors are paying for these books to get into influencer hands, and you know, like the book mail side of it, of sending books out and things, like there is a vast kind of expense going in that you don't see. It's not just that book influencers are picking something up off the shelves by happy accident. You know, in a lot of cases, like they're being given books to potentially promote and share about. So that's why all of a sudden something does blow up, because, you know, there has been this huge kind of marketing campaign behind it. And obviously the book still needs to be good, but like, you know,
I picked up a book, like a book I kept seeing on Booktok. Like obviously everybody has heard of it, like Fourth Wing by Rebecca. And I loved it. I fucking love that book. Like I cannot believe it. So it works, you know. Booktok has great recommendation, but yeah. So
and the whole time I've been looking at, like, just in awe of that kind of book marketing campaign, going like, holy shit.
Awesome. I think it's amazing.
This is mind-blowing. Like it's very, very cool.
It is. But I think it's very cool, and I'm so happy for authors that, you know, that's happening to them. Like, you know, for example, Fourth Wing. I think it's amazing, and I love that book. I genuinely did.
I think, did I see you put in your stories that you were like up
oh yeah, I did. It was so good. Like it was very, very good. Like I loved it. But I think it puts a lot of pressure. You know, when authors see these things, it puts a lot of pressure on them. Like, oh, I want that to be me, which is a natural feeling. Like, of course, everybody wants that for themselves, you know. But I think it's bad for them in the way that it just puts so much pressure on them, and it's just focus on writing and, you know, doing your thing. And then, you know, if the book is, you know, is good, people will talk about it. You know, it will. Things will happen.
Yeah, well, this is something that I often talk about with, you know, that books have such a different lifespan to so many things that we are so used to being very like short term or short lived or short attention span, sort of like the Netflix bingey energy, right? But books have got this lifespan that, you know, we're writing things now that we ideally are wanting people in 50, 80, 100 years time potentially to still be enjoying picking up and reading. And that's, I think that's testament as well to the authors you support, like that their work has spanned multiple decades and are still the type of books that people pick up for the first time today and are just like instantly hooked and in like down the rabbit hole. Like
you have books that are 10 years old that are becoming all of a sudden super popular because, you know, someone talked about it and then it took off and everybody talks about it. And they're, you know, and, you know, like I don't know what I was watching. Can't remember. I don't know. I can't remember what it is, but there was an author that was saying that one of her books, who was 10 plus years old, had suddenly become popular and was in the top 100 on Amazon. And she hadn't done anything, right? She hadn't done anything, but she's like, this book usually, like this book was not like, it didn't work when I first released it. But now, you know, 10 years later, all of a sudden it's this huge thing. And I think that's what you said. I think that's so awesome that a book can be, you know, 10 years old and all of a sudden become so popular. And so that's what I'm saying, you know, don't give up, and just, you never know. You really never know. Anything can happen.
Yeah. And I think your kind of journey with this community and how things have come about is really almost like that example of just by being someone who is genuinely interested in reading, in books, in, you know, enjoying the worlds of these books. Like it's amazing where that can sort of lead as well. And I think for authors,
Oh, yeah.
like, it's important to remember to hang on to that, because, you know, there are so many people like yourself that are going to be out there in the community that are going to be these amazing champions for books and series and like authors. And yeah, and you never know what partnerships can kind of blossom from that, like, as well.
Yeah.
Which is a whole other side to obviously what you do with, you know, also doing the graphics and the, you know, the things that the other skill sets that you have cultivated through just your career working with and around authors and books and promoting and things. And yeah, I just know that like there's so much of that that comes into, again, like if it's not your wheelhouse, if it's not something that you maybe as an author or whatever are comfortable with doing, like reach out and find people who do love doing that, because
Exactly.
it's also something that is out there. Like, yeah.
Exactly. Absolutely. I think, you know, I think with Cressley, that's the, again, I feel like a lot of people, I had this reader who told me, like, you talk a lot about Cressley and you don't talk a lot about Gina. And I don't think that's true. It's just because Gina is much more independent, right? She will, you know, she will be active on her own group. She will do, she will tweet, you know, she'll do things, you know, on social media that I don't worry about. But Cressley, I'm literally, I'm everywhere. I do everything, because she's not, you know, even when she makes her post, like she writes the text, but she will send it to me, and then I'm the one who post. She's just completely away from social media, and so that's why, you know, that's why that's why I'm here, and I'm so happy to be able to bring her social media back to life. You know, I get readers telling me, you know, I remember last year I was Book Bonanza. I'm going again this year, but I was Book Bonanza last year, and I had this two readers come in. There were a woman, and they came to see me, and they're like, they just sang me. I just want to thank you for bringing Cressley back to us. And of course, you know, I'm not the one who told Cressley you have to come back, right? Like, she did that by herself, but it made me happy to know that, you know, they were so genuinely happy to have the social media back. Because I can understand as a reader how readers have this weird relationship with authors, and I understand it, because like I said, I was obsessed with Gina when I started, and I was talking her, and I was a weirdo who was like love my friend. So I get that relationship where you love the book so much that by association you love the author, like you love the author so much, and you consider them a friend almost, even though they've never heard of you. And so I could understand readers who were worried about Presley, you know, when she was gone, who genuinely were wondering what was going on. And so the fact that I'm able to, you know, just make them less worried, and to know that, okay, the social media are active, Naomi is here, and, you know, even though Cressley is not necessarily on social media, we know that Naomi is our connection to Cressley. And so that's just that's, you know, it's a good feeling to have, to know that, you know, I'm that connection, and I'm able to help Cressley, because I know I help her a lot, but also for the readers to have that, you know, connection to their author that they wouldn't have if I wasn't there. So
yeah, it's like bridging that gap, right? It's and facilitating something that you are, you're just giving that sort of presence that makes it feel like, okay, I know that, you know, this person that I really want to support, and like really you know, because again, like reading is it's a different thing to say watching like a movie where somebody's acting in a movie, right? Like you can love an actor or an actress or a, you know, sort of celebrity type person, but they're portraying a role, right? Whereas like when you're reading a book, you're like reading the brain of someone, like it's kind of got that intimacy that isn't there necessarily with other forms of media. So I really love that. And I know like I could just keep like pestering you forever with questions, but I would love to just kind of get a little taste of, you just mentioned before, there are exciting things coming up this year. Like as we're recording this episode, we're in June, it's halfway through 2023. What are kind of the Naomi highlights coming up for the rest of 2023?
There are a lot.
Yeah.
There are a lot. I'm very there are things that I really, I mean, you know, Shadow Seduction is coming in audio, which I'm very excited about because it's a book that, you know, a lot of readers wanted in audio. And so this is happening and it should release very soon. Cressley also has a new release that should be, if all works out, this year as well. And if all works out, we should be able to announce something like soon too. Again, I have to, you know, see with her. And there are other things that are happening behind the scene that I can't talk about that are very exciting, very, very exciting.
You guys should know that literally before we started recording this episode, I was like to Naomi, I was saying, what can and can't I pester you about this?
You can ask me, I just can't answer.
Yeah, she's like, I just will have to be like, no.
Yeah, no, I think that's the most frustrating part with my job sometimes, that, you know things, but you really can't say anything. And so even though I do love teasing, that's true, I love teasing, there are things that I genuinely can't say anything about. And so that's very hard sometimes. It's like, ugh, if only you knew, like, if only you knew.
If only I could just like drop some hints here about like.
No, I think a lot of good things are coming for both Gina and Chris. Gina has a release at the beginning of 2024 that I'm so pumped about.
Because you've just been doing all the teasers for that, haven't you? Like, because I'm assuming that was you putting together the teasers and
we started teasing for that, but I'm very excited about this release because it's about a character that, you know, was in our Lords of the Underworld series. It's a, you know, highly anticipated character, so I'm super pumped about that. And I'm just so happy for, I think Cressley has a lot like going on behind the scene that we can't say anything about, but she's been very busy and a lot of things have been happening. And so I'm very excited to be able to, I think once I can announce the thing that I'm about, I'll tell you, like, that's what I was thinking about.
Like that's what I was pointing at that we could talk about.
I can't say anything right now.
And I mean, of course, you guys have had, like, between what Cressley's been doing and Gina's been doing this year, even just like the first 6 months of this year has been huge, because you've had From the Grave came out, which was like hugely anticipated release to kind of culminate that series that has been going on for a while. And I mean, I just was in awe of all the things you were sharing about the pre-order incentives that you were coordinating, and like, I think did you have your mum like helping you package envelopes and like
that was wild. I mean, I had this idea.
Is the behind the scenes. The behind the scenes.
It'll be fun. I was like, it was not fun. It was not.
And I think everyone who received one of those beautifully hand packaged envelopes by yourself and your mum.
God bless my mom. Like, honestly, she helped me so much. I think that's another part of like self-publishing that, you know, readers do not like. When you're traditionally published, if you own, like, I don't know, if you have a pre-order incentive, the publisher takes care of that. Like, as the author, you have nothing to do. Like, basically, you just have to write the book. Like, you don't do the cover.
Maybe sign some shit. Like, that's
exactly.
Exactly.
But when you're self-published, you do everything. Like, you have to do. And so, you know, we had a lot of readers say, oh, why can't I have the pre-order incentive? I'm like, it's not that you can't have it, it's just that we don't have enough for everyone. And it's can't have enough for everyone because it costs a lot of money to print all of this and to send all of this, and it also like it takes a long time to, you know, package everything, and I can't do that like for 2 months. Like, I'm tired.
It's like your robot skills like tap out at a certain
like, I'm only one person, I can only do so much.
Much like an author cannot like hand sign, you know, 100,000 copies of their book, like, you know. Because I think even, was it like that photo of the book plates that got signed or something, like it was just like this mountainous
signed a lot. And she loves signing stuff though. She does. She loves signing stuff. But she's always a good sport. One thing about both Gina and Cressley actually are that they're very easy to work with. Like, if I can post whatever I want. Like, I know them enough to know what they wouldn't want me to post, but like, they're not like, as you know, they never ask me to like see things before I post. Like, they're not at all And every time I have a suggestion about something, they're always like open for it and they always go for it. And so that's why, that's also one thing I love about working for them, is that it's fun, right? Like they allow me to be creative and to do things that can, like, I sometimes do really silly shit, but it's, readers enjoy it. And yeah, like I'm going to Book Bonanza in a few days, and I had printed this, like, it's a stick with the face on it, and I have one for Gina and one for Cressley, and they're like human size, so they're big. So I'm going to have readers take photos with them, and I'm going to post them on social media, and it's stupid, but it's funny.
I love it.
And so I do, I really enjoy working for them because they I can basically do whatever I want, and I love that they trust me enough, for to do that. And I also love that we are I always say, if you want to work with an author, you have to have good communication, you have to have trust, and you have to be honest. Like, I know it's hard because it was hard for me, but like, you have to be honest with, like, be it you or the author. Like, the author has to be honest with you. If you do something that they don't like, they have to tell you, because you can't know if they don't tell you. But you also you have to be honest with them too. Like, sometimes, when they have to do something, when, you have to be like, okay, this is it. Like, you have to do this. Like, I have to do that with Cressley sometimes, to be like, okay, we need to have a date for this. We need to have a date for that, because Cressley will, she doesn't realize how, like, the time has passed, and she's like, holy shit, we're already like 2 weeks. She doesn't necessarily realize like how much time has passed since we made that announcement, or since we did that. So I have to be like, okay. And so sometimes that's hard for me, because I wasn't very assertive before. So it's hard for me to give orders, like, to be like, okay, we have to do this and we have to do that. But with Cressley, you learn fast, because you have to. And she'll be the first to tell you that she needs pressure. Like, she needs a little bit of pressure to function. Like, she needs a little bit of pressure to write and to do things. And so I just annoy the shit out of her until she does. But I also know that if I really do something that she doesn't like, or if she really doesn't want to do something, she'll tell me. And same thing, like, if Gina doesn't want me to do something, she will tell me. And I would rather someone be honest with me, even if they not necessarily hurt my feelings, but even if it's never nice to have someone say no, or someone say, no, I don't want you to do this, or I didn't like what you did. But at least and you're aware, and you won't do it again. Then have someone who never says anything to you, but is pissed at you because, I would rather. So I love that. And I love that they're very open with me and honest, and that we can have this relationship where I can be annoying, but I know that if I really would, like, annoy them, they would tell me. You know?
And I think that that's almost like the hallmark of a quality PA, is like finding, like, treading that boundary of like, I'm gonna ride your ass because I know what your community needs.
Exactly.
I know what your people are after. And especially if you are an author who wants to step away from it, like, you don't realize how a 24-hour cycle for someone who is engaging in DMs and things like that is a long period of time for some people to wait, let alone like a month or 2 months or whatever after a teaser or an announcement. So yeah, it's finding that fine line. And I think I can't remember where you shared it, maybe in Cressley's group, that like some of the screenshots with it like blanked out, but you were like, basically your pep talk like lists that you would send, like, right, today this is happening, tomorrow this is happening. And I fucking loved it.
I send a list, like, every time we on the phone, like, okay, I have a list, a to-do list I know I have to do. And I send her text. I'm like, okay, you can do this, I believe in you. And I just
and I love that.
She's amazing. I never want readers to think that I'm saying things about her like this because I'm annoyed with her. Not at all. It's just, she's just very different than Gina to work with. And so, and that's how she works. And she'll be the first to tell you that she needs that little bit of pressure, and she needs people to be on her ass a little to be able to, function. Because if not, just, she's in her world and she's writing and it's awesome, right? But she just doesn't necessarily think about like, oh, I need to post on social media. Oh, I need to keep them updated.
Because that's why you've
And
got a Naomi to do all of that, to work that magic. And I have the same relationship with my PA that, you know, I get like, we call it like accountability, you know, in the sense of like, okay, what is happening this week? What is happening today? Because I'm the same, like, you know, I need somebody riding my ass, like to be like, okay, how are you going with like formatting your paperback interiors, or like whatever the thing is that I'm sort of like, that's in my court, that's on my plate. And, you know, or how are you going with that word count today? Sort of thing.
yeah, that's another thing that Cressy and I do is like I text her. I don't text her every day, but I text her. I'm like, okay, how's the writing going?
Yeah.
How much word? That's something that we laughed about and was like, do you want me to do this? And she was like, yeah, do this, like do it. So now I do it. And but you know, I know that she doesn't mind. Like I wouldn't do it if like I knew it was something that would bother her. I know that she doesn't mind. So
yeah. And you know, we appreciate it from coming from people that we trust and who love our work, and who, you know, because that's ultimately like your relationship with your authors, is that you love their books like,
oh yeah,
just as much if not more than they do, right? So it's like you're coming from that energy of like, this is so fucking amazing, and this is just like the sprinkling on the top that is making it even more amazing than it already is. So, you know, as someone who is part of these communities myself, as a reader and as just a long time lover of these wonderful women themselves, it is always a pleasure to see your energy and your sense of humor, because I really love that as well, that's like a special like Naomi zing that you bring to like everything. It's so fun. It's so
I'm
fun.
always careful. I'm always careful because I know we have a lot of every day we have a lot of either on the group like members and stuff, and I'm always like, they're not going to understand that I'm joking and that I'm just, you know, I'm not being serious right now. And
yeah,
so
it's like this, like
I
how
always have
to convey.
emoji or something. I'm always afraid they're going to think I'm serious when most of the time
Yeah.
I'm just joking.
Yeah, it's like the dry sense of humor. It's like how to have the right combination of emojis to like indicate
Exactly.
like this is this is me
Do I
laughing.
add a little emoji here? Do I say LOL? Like,
Yeah. I love it. I am so fucking grateful for you coming and spending your evening with us, and for sharing all of the deliciousness of life behind the scenes. I know that you are an incredibly busy woman, so I just have to say again, such a big thank you for coming and for sharing all of
for
this.
having me.
How can everyone connect with you, be in your world, come and hang out, give us all the goods?
You can find me on Gina and Cressy's group. I'm very active there. You can find me mostly on Instagram. I don't post a lot on Instagram, but I do post on my stories a lot because it's like my journal. I'm being very annoying in the stories. French and Bookish. All my social medias are French. I have Twitter. I'm not very active on Twitter, but I have Twitter as well. And I have Facebook, but my Facebook is more like private stuff. It's not fun.
Yeah.
So Instagram is where it's at.
Yeah, and we'll link up your website as well, because you do have,
oh yeah,
I don't know how much availability you've got with your busy schedule, but you do offer freelance design work and things like that as well, for any authors who are looking for all of that good stuff behind the scenes.
I do.
Yeah, so we'll make sure to link up everything. You're amazing. This episode has been an absolute joy.
Thank you for having me so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, and always a beautiful insight to see how things work behind the scenes is like, you know, just so fascinating, especially for, you know, the queens of paranormal romance themselves, who have been doing, like, they have been laying the foundation for so many of us to walk in their footsteps. So we really do appreciate all that you do. And you're magical. You're amazing. And thank you everyone for tuning in. Remember to go and follow Naomi, get in her world. You are like animal mama extraordinaire. So that's a big part of my joy in my day as a fellow dog mother, like, of all of your stories.
I love my dog and my cat.
And of course, we are at successful.witches everywhere. You can find me at Elliott Rose Author, and we have absolutely enjoyed having you along with us for this episode. Thank you, everyone, and we will see you very shortly. Bye.